Very excited for the couple of weeks that are ahead for the New Orleans Pelicans. We broke down the game against the Kings yesterday, and the Pels got the win. They got the cover as well, 123 to 109 in Sacramento over the Fighting Alvin Gentrys. The Pelicans only led by 3 points at halftime, Musso, 60 to 57. But right out of the gates, 3 straight three-pointers. Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Jackson Hayes all hit from downtown. The margin goes to 69 to 57, and the Pelicans hold on from there, get the win, get the cover. To me, the big story from the game last night specifically was Jackson Hayes. He continues to look really, really good out there, and that's a big testament to Willie Green's coaching, because just like last season, Jackson Hayes gets benched early in the year, loses his spot to Billy Hernan-Gomez, but he worked on the rest of his game. He's not just doing cool dunks anymore. He's spreading the floor as a shooter. He's playing better defense. He's cutting to the goal, and he's playing some really good basketball. In the event where Zion Williamson returns, which is still technically possible, Jackson Hayes might have to give up a little bit of minutes, which I'm sure he might not love. But as of right now, he might make that a very hard thing to do because he's playing really well.
He is. Jackson Hayes is playing. He was a big focal point of the game last night, big focal point of Willie Green's post-game presser last night as well. And it just, you mentioned the win and the cover. The Pelicans never really felt like they were in danger of losing that game last night, but it did take them a little bit to get over that 8.5. But kudos to you, my guy. You called it. I was a little hesitant last night to jump on them at the 8.5, but they covered it. We could talk about that game all we want last night, but for me, coming out of it, it's obviously just the bigger picture. I mean, what this team accomplished last night in doing that. And look, the Lakers lost, so even if you didn't beat the Kings, you would have clinched your play-in spot anyway. But it's always better to do it by winning the game yourself. And they did that. And just what this signifies for this franchise right now is massive. I mean, they started 1-12. That could have gone south. I mean, you could easily have gone the other way. And the turmoil around Zion at that point in the season, does he want to be here? Does he not? Is his family pushing him out the door? Is he milking the injury? Everything you've heard there, and you get the injury to BI throughout the year as well. But you go out, you get C.J. McCollum. You hold your head above water, get C.J. McCollum at the trade deadline. And since the All-Star break, man, or the All-Star game, the Pelicans have been really, really good and really, really fun to watch. And they've put a great product out there. And you mentioned it just with Jackson Hayes, but as an entirety of the season, major credit to Willie Green. In his first season, how many times have we all talked about with the Pelicans, what should the expectation be? You talked about it in Gentry's final year. So, well, the expectation is to be playoffs. I mean, you've got the team. You've got the roster to do it. That doesn't happen, and he gets let go. Oh, what about Van Gundy's year? Well, no, playoffs. And even now with Willie Green, you should at least get into the play-in, into the postseason, into the playoffs. He accomplished that in the first year. So major credit to that guy. And the future looks bright. I mean, we could talk about the game, but for me, it's just the bigger picture.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited about the future. We'll see what happens in the offseason. I'm still giving most credit to Willie Green. A lot of people are giving a lot of praise to David Griffin, and he deserves a lot of praise. It was a really, really good offseason for the Pelicans. But to your point, I think a big, big reason for the success is not just what Willie Green's done, but what he's done as a first-year head coach. Missing his best player all season, missing Brandon Ingram 20-plus games, more than a quarter of the season. That's really good work from Willie Green, and some really good work by Edward O. and Dustin Blanchard in the YouTube chat here, having some fun. Dustin's asking me if my feet is hurting from dancing on the Lakers' grave yet. Not quite yet, but maybe by the end of the day, Dustin. And then Edward O. says Mario is like Brian Kelly on the spinning wheel. That's how happy I am. Pretty appropriate. And I'm pretty happy to hear you saying all that, Musso. Got my co-host believing. Most of the fan base is believing now, and they should. Because like you said, at worst, the Pelicans will be in the play-in this season. Not quite the playoffs, but we know what the 9-10 matchup is going to be in the Western Conference. It will be the Pelicans, and it will be the San Antonio Spurs. Speaking of which, San Antonio officially has my attention right now. As we recap our picks from yesterday, I thought not only would they lose to the Nuggets, but the Denver would also cover the -8. San Antonio goes out there. Not only do they win outright, but they dominate the Nuggets 116-97 without DeJounte Murray, their best player, their all-star. That's now 7 wins in 8 games for San Antonio, 3-0 without DeJounte Murray. And it's very, very important that the Pelicans hold them off here, Musso. Right now, a 1-game lead for New Orleans over San Antonio. The Spurs had the tiebreaker. But historically, there's been a big, big difference between Spurs-Pelicans matchups in New Orleans and Spurs-Pelicans matchup in San Antonio. Because in New Orleans, all time, the Pelicans 17-25 against San Antonio. Not a very good clip. But when you look at their record in San Antonio in 38 games, how many games do you think they've won, Musso?
4.
6-32.
So 6.
All time in San Antonio. That's a 159 winning percentage. And it's crazy that this is still a rivalry. Like back in 2008, when the then Hornets had their best season ever as a franchise, Greg Popovich was giving them nightmares, and they won that series in 7 games back in 2008. Here we sit 14 years later, and Greg Popovich still a headache in the mind of Pelicans fans. That's pretty impressive, and it might be his last season. Nobody's really talking about that, but this is a really, really motivated San Antonio squad that's playing some really good ball right now.
We kind of talked about this. I think it might have been last week, Mario, when we were going through playoff odds, or play-in odds, and I told you I thought it would end up being Pels Spurs, and I don't love that matchup for New Orleans. The Spurs scare the hell out of me. It's kind of what you were just saying about, like, everybody still respects them so much. The fact that they have won 7 of 8 and are 3-0 without DeJounte Murray is the most impressive part of that. They've beaten the Pels up pretty good down the stretch here already after the All-Star game when New Orleans has been playing their best basketball. You would love to have them at home. Obviously, that's a big cushion, but again, kind of down the stretch, you lost to them at home. So that is a game that really worries me. But again, big picture, the most important thing is New Orleans played meaningful basketball here down the stretch, and they won when they needed to, and they'll get to play more meaningful basketball in a postseason setting, which is just important for team chemistry, bonding, and for experience going forward.
And that's the challenge for Willie Green kind of in the near future here, because as impressive as the season has been, as impressive as the contributions from guys like Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado, people that Pelicans fans didn't know who they were before the season, as impressive as that is, now this is still a young team that you have to keep focused here. You can't be satisfied with just making the play-in, despite the fact that it is a good accomplishment, all things considered, but you got to make sure to hold off San Antonio here, try to get to that second play-in game and try to qualify for the postseason. Your prize in that scenario would be getting to play the 63-win Phoenix Suns, which is maybe not the best thing in the world, but getting a 7-game series for this group would be huge. And you would think it's a doable task holding off San Antonio. We touched on the remaining schedule for both teams yesterday. We'll do it again right now. The Pelicans have Portland tomorrow, at Memphis on April 9th, versus Golden State on April 10th in the last home game. Meanwhile, the Spurs also have 3 games left. They're at Minnesota versus Golden State and at Dallas. Now, Dallas and Memphis being in there is interesting because Memphis not really playing for much right now. They've already locked up the 2nd seed, so that is advantage Pelicans. But the Mavericks still going to be playing really hard, and the Spurs still have them on the schedule. They're trying to catch Golden State for the 3rd seed right now and avoid a potential second-round matchup with the aforementioned Phoenix Suns. So the schedule's still a little tough for the Spurs, but the Pelicans can't afford a letdown.
And, we focused a lot on keeping this game at home, keeping this game in the blender to Smoothie King Center. New Orleans currently a 1-game lead over the Spurs for that 9th spot, which would get to host the play-in. So while they've clinched and they've got the 3 games left, those 3 games are still massively important. They're still playing important basketball. You want to win them down the stretch, get that home court advantage.